Right. Data sync, you see? Can you tell? Yeah. Bet you didn't notice that one. Yeah. Basically, okay, it's not quite fair to say it's when you're too cheap to use SQL Data Compare. It's using a different technology. Why would you ever want to sync data? Well, it's pretty obvious, really. If you have, say, your site here, your physical office block over here, and it's got some data. And you've got your physical office block over in Sydney, and it also has some data. You could set up some elaborate scheme to sync between the two, but Azure basically has done all that for you. So, and here we go, my cloud drawing skills. See, I'm getting good at that. What they do is they have you a SQL Azure database. And what you do is you set up a sync between your database over here and database over here, and it just keeps everything in order. Okay, so, right, well, that's all very interesting, but how does it actually do it? What it actually does is it adds a load of metadata tables and triggers and stuff to your database, which effectively perform the change tracking within your database. And then when a sync happens, it uses those tables and actually calculates the sync necessary to sync the data. Now, it's not only between two. You can sync with between lots of different sites. So it's actually quite useful. However, at the moment, data in the cloud wins, which is a pretty poor way of doing kind of conflict management. The conflict management is the cloud is always right.
So that boils down to who syncs first is right.
Yeah, who syncs first is right, as far as I can tell, which is not a fantastic mechanism. If the cloud went down, you've probably got bigger problems. No, well, actually, the cloud. So, EU, Ireland, SQL Azure all went down for about a couple of hours, 90 minutes, I think it was in total, not too long ago. Took out labs. So I wrote a nice little blog article about how I restored labs using my backup that I did with SQL Azure Backup. Aren't I cool? And actually got the blog post out before they put SQL Azure back up. I was quite proud of that. If you change your schema, you have to reset up everything. No schema changes are supported. You can understand why, if it uses side tables to store the data. So a sync group is how you set it up. It uses an MSI, which is installed on your SQL Server, which basically is your little task that sits there, fried egg, that basically every now and again goes up to the cloud and says, do I need to sync yet? And then it performs a sync all at once. You can schedule that sync to happen at any point in time from 5 minutes to weekly. So how frequently do you want your updates to happen? In this situation, I mean, when you've got multiple sites, the kind of routine thing is you allocate your different sites, different ranges of keys to try and ensure that there isn't going to be a conflict. It's a fairly well-known problem. It's kind of like, if you have salesmen on the road and they have a copy of the customer database, when they create a customer, to ensure that it syncs properly, you ensure that your other salesperson is going to create a customer with a different ID. It's a known thing. Or you can actually just manually perform a sync. It's actually an Azure application itself. So, yeah? Is it encrypted? Well, the connections to and from Azure can be encrypted using SSL. So, it depends on your connection string. But I would imagine the data sync would use a connection string that is encrypted. So the interesting thing is this, although it's a feature of Azure, it's actually an Azure application itself. So it uses a web role for the configuration. It uses worker roles to perform the actual sync operations. It uses an Azure database to control the configuration of your groups. So at the moment there's CTP, but it's closed, so I can't get in it. There's going to be an open CTP in Q3, so I think probably September. A lot of stuff for Azure is coming out in September. And they're going to V1 it in 2011. That's a whirlwind, what I understand of what data sync services is. That basically covers the SQL part. So from now on we go on to roles and storage.